Hello, John.
Hello, Warren.
Today we're going to talk about the county club in Dunshaughlin. It's being transformed into a Romanian Pentecostal church. It was once owned by the Peters family, and I would consider it the copper-faced Jacks of County Meath in its day. It was a great, great place where I'm sure many, many couples met and they got married and they were in love and the whole lot. So it had a great reputation, and tragically, I have a bit of a sad story about it because a friend of mine, two friends of mine coming back from there, one of them lost their life. The car crashed on the way back to Dublin. So I know that one of them died, and I knew at the time I was 19, so it goes back a long, long time ago. So Gavin
Yeah.
Hughes died. He was only 19, and then he was his friend Dara. But I never knew if Dara actually died. Dara was in a coma, and I've no contact details ever. That was over 30 years ago. So I don't know if Dara ever pulled out of the coma or what, but it was a sad story. It was
uh,
his young lives, you know.
yeah. Doesn't time march on when you think of it? And yet, a place like that. Did you mention, was it Copperface Jacks? Was it called that?
No, no, what I'm saying is like there's a very successful nightclub in Dublin
It
called
was a
Copperface
nightclub, yeah.
Jacks, right? And
I,
I'm just
I think
saying,
it was,
yeah, I'm just saying that the county club Dunshaughlin would have been the Copperface Jacks of its time. It was so
it would,
successful. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. You could get a meal there too because my late wife, she had a sister there, Koch, living in Dunshaughlin. And once or twice we had a meal down in that County Arms, or whatever they call it, and it was the nightclub as well beside it. So they went to it, and they were to me they were not a great, they were a bad idea because before when I was young it was dance halls. And you had Mick Delahunty and the Melody Aces and a whole heap of good bands and around the country, and it was more normal. There was no drink served. You were lucky to invite somebody up to the upstairs for an orange. That's all it was served. So like it was different. A nightclub then come in where drink was plentiful. In some ways, to my way of thinking, it deteriorated. It went downhill, and you had the experience of a couple of good friends. One died, and the other was injured. But sometimes when you're that age, things are moving all the time, and you don't get to know what happened. The one that was in a coma, you just hope that they recovered, and maybe in due course you might be able to find out somewhere along the line whether that chap did come out. But he wouldn't be the better for it because when you're in an action of that caliber, you're never kind of right after it. You're not. It takes
Yeah.
you a long time to get better, and thank God I've many years driving, and I had an accident or two, as one does with the amount of driving I did. But I took the name of Christopher as my confirmation name, and it turned out that was the patron saint of the travellers. So that must have kept me safe all those years.
Very good.
And I did a lot of driving, I can tell you. So I'm just saying, but then because there was no drink at the dances, so therefore you were sober by and large. You might have a drink quietly somewhere, but you certainly were fairly steady on your feet. The only thing was the women were on one side at times, and you were so there was a bit of a gallop to have a dance. It wasn't like nightclubs with low lights. The lights were seemed to be always bright, and there was a ball in the ceiling, and the lights would be flickering off. And now and again, they might have lowered them a bit for a slow waltz or a slow foxtrot or whatever they called it. But it was good. And then I morphed into, or I become very fond of Irish dancing. We went to the Irish club in Dublin, Parnell Street, and it was all Cayley dancing. I loved the music attached to it when I was as 19 and 20 and that type of thing. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I liked the other as well, but I began to have more in tune with the Irish thing. It's in your DNA. It was in my DNA in any way. So as soon as I heard that I call him McCusker Brothers, and Jimmy Shan from Scotland. He had a famous band, and he played one time there when it was there. Marvelous music and the accordion and all the rest of it, and the songs and that, beautiful.
Well,
You're talking about I'm just after digressing again. That's my trouble.
it's your
My
talent.
real
It's
trouble.
it's it's your talent.
I drift on to other things. Without me realising it, once
Yes.
about dancing, I just kind of say to myself, well, thanks be to God. And then, as a matter of fact, one time I went to Zavagos, which was a nightclub. I think it was in Dublin, in Westmoreland Street or somewhere like that. And to tell you the God truth, I wasn't long getting out of it because I just didn't like the slew of it. And the ones who
Okay.
was in it looked to me like as if they were the wrong side of the track. And you could meet what I call a nice lady. They seemed to be a different breed. I never liked it, to be honest with you. And I had a date one time and with a girl that I was very fond of, and she treated me to my birthday for a nice lunch in Quo Vadis, which was a nice restaurant in Exchequer Street or somewhere like that. And I think we were in the concert hall and had a nice. So it was a grand evening. But the kibosh, she said we'll go to a nightclub, and you didn't have to pay in, but the drink was where. And I didn't like it one bit. And as a matter of fact, after that, I broke it up with that lady because I wouldn't be into that type of thing,
Yeah, yeah.
nightclubs. And that was the second one I was in, and we had a grand evening, but that kind of destroyed it.
Well,
And she was a nice girl, and but when that happens, no, I'm sorry, bye bye Blackboard. I'm not too keen on that. So nightclubs and the one that you're talking about, the County Arms, I know it in Dunshaughlin. Naturally I was never in it, but it was a sad affair. I knew it was going to turn into something good. They're going to be saying prayers, I presume, Romanians. And so they must be going to stay put here. They're in the EU, and but here's where they landed. They can go to any country, but here now, and they're going to build their own church out of a nightclub. So it's coming to a more modern use. So nightclubs must be not used as much as they were. I don't know what they're doing now. Any idea what way they're passing their time now, or is there still nightclubs going?
no, nightclubs like I mean is the whole concept of a nightclub in Dublin and all around the country is gone.
Is it?
Yeah.
So they're gone. Well, you see, that wasn't a good idea, and it's like what they call speakeasies. It didn't have a good quality. The dance halls had a quality and had some kind of decency attached to it. Do you know what I mean? And then there was marquees in the summer in towns, and where there was a big tent and the man to be paid there. So that was, and they put in some kind of a floor, and sometimes you'd be sliding along it because you weren't a great dancer. I wasn't of that. Well, I did all right. I was able to get around, but I wouldn't call myself good. But it was very homely and wholesome insofar as it could be because you were trying to sort of meet somebody nice and sort of say, "Here you fix for you, walk you home," or if you're able to come on the bicycle, because that's all we had was bicycles.
Yeah.
There was none of this business of cars, and you'd have to walk maybe or something like that. But that was then, and now these nightclubs are a different kettle of fish. They were driving to it, and God help them. They were normally not too sober when they were going home, and dangerous, wasn't it? Because many a one had accidents.
But the thing is, anyway, the nightclubs in general in Ireland, I mean, they're just gone, and one of the reasons they're gone is the rising wage costs. For example, security, the private security industry, that was all regulated, and that meant they had the astronomical costs for bouncers at the door. They could no longer pay them cash; they had to be licensed, and So there was all these things, and then there was
Right.
rising costs for insurance. Then there was the 2008 crash really kind of came in on top of the nightclub and destroyed it. So nobody had any money. And then people got used to
Yeah.
drinking at home and getting cheap beer in the off license and having
It's right,
parties.
yeah,
So
correct and right. And so it's changed. But talking about nightclubs, there was one episode at the Stardust. I think we did a program on one at night, and all the exits were locked
that's
because
right.
of
Yeah.
the fact that wanted to get in. But I think the young fellas started a fire, did something, and it mushroomed, and there was a lot of deaths. And that was in Charlie Haughey's constituency. And I think the art fesh for the Fianna Fáil party was being held the weekend that happened, so it had to be cancelled. And that didn't do nightclubs much good
Yeah.
because of the amount of people and drinking and all the rest of it. And these were young people from around the area, and they were, there were working class young fellas, if you like, and there would be normally sometimes known to the police because they were on the wrong side of the law. So it was that sort of a crowd, and so the crowd that owned it, they also owned Scotch Jams. I can't think of their name now, but it caused a lot of trouble,
Yeah.
and it was very bad the way it happened. But so nightclubs then, between one thing and another, as you say, the cost of security and all the rest of it, and insurance, it just closed. And now, honest to goodness, there's pubs closed right, left, and centre, which is a shame
Yeah.
because they were often a social thing. And Micheál Martin did away with the first country did away with smoking in the
Yeah.
pub, which was often a social thing. They weren't thinking about living to be 90 or something. And they weren't smoking excessive and maybe having a pipe and a bit of a chat. So we did away with all that and destroyed the pub trade. Same as you destroyed the grocery trade with the below cost grocery order and all the family stores closing. So
He
that fella
seems
has an awful.
quite destructive, Micheál Martin.
Well, and you started the HSE to save money and look at the cost of this hospital in for children in the worst site in the country. If you wanted to pick the worst site in the country, you'd pick James's Street.
Yeah.
Would you like to live in James Street? Would you like to, if you got a house for nothing in James Street, would you take it? I
Well,
wouldn't,
I certainly wouldn't.
because you die with the smoke in relation. And funny enough, I had one or two customers in Thomas Street, in James Street years back, and the water pressure there was zilch. They had to put in pumps if they wanted to get an automatic glass washer. To put in pumps
Hmm.
to get the pressure up. And so I don't know. We don't hear about that, but I'd love to call to the local people and see is the pressure anyways improved. Because if it's not, it'll cost a fortune to try and keep the water right and everything in that hospital that they built. It shows, and nobody has had to answer for such a card. It's not even open yet. The most expensive children's hospital in the world.
Yeah.
Now, we're after digression from the nightclubs, but this is where you have a government that's three in the head. And you were talking about there one time some expert saying some economist that there might be a slump with President Trump and one thing and another. But instead of relying on food production in this country, they have all this foreign companies in the technical in the computer business, and they can be here today and gone tomorrow, can't they? And they give a lot of employment, and they've got incentives to stay here, tax wise.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, we were criticised by the EU because they do to get them companies, but we had them here because we had a educated workforce. Now I'm after digressing again from the point of view of the business of the nightclubs. So we do digress, don't we?
We do indeed,
But
absolutely.
we have to bear in mind that um, abuse of alcohol is always a bad thing. It causes problems in families and it causes problems everywhere.
Yeah, but going back to the
If it's
nightclubs, I think, look, the nightclubs were a cash cow for those who ran them, all over the
Well,
country. And like when you think about it, if somebody was going out for a night in Dublin, I remember when Zanzibar was open, and you'd probably spend 150 quid in a night by the time you get the taxi home.
so then you'd want your head examined when you think of it. I mean, I was in the whatever it was, and I had in a paradiso, I think. No, maybe whatever it was, because I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I got out of it fairly quick because I didn't like even the clients that was in there. I wouldn't want to go with anyone that was in it.
Yeah.
You know, them type of way. I like to see a wholesome person that I can actually see. But with the way the bloody lights were, you couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
They all seemed to be shuffling around the corners drinking. That's not the way to do things. And then it was it, as I was telling you with this one that I liked, and then she unfortunately did the wrong thing, bring me to a nightclub, and she was had to be so nice, and I went, but by God, that was the end of it because I just wouldn't be interested in anybody to. That's the way they want to spend their time because that's not the way I'd spend my time
Joe
in
Malone.
a nightclub. Too
Thank.
long. Well, I wasn't long in the tooth that time.
Hmm.
But I knew what I liked and what I didn't like, and certainly nightclubs didn't appeal to yours through the one bit, even though younger people that had no experience of what we had would maybe use them. But I wouldn't like to meet anybody in them, to be honest with you. I wouldn't know what to be like. So there you are, Oliver. So we're rather talking about nightclubs and a few other little
So
angles that
County
we.
Meath has lost a nightclub, but they have gained a church, and that's not a bad trade-off.
No, no, and I wonder will they put in stained glass windows? No, I don't think those ones. If it's a Protestant, no, they don't have the stained glass windows. I had my friend Eamon and his son from the Queens in New York, and his grandson here last Thursday, and I showed him the church and the stained glass windows at the back. Uh, that is it Clark, the fella that's a famous one that did these stained glass windows, and St. Albert Plunkett is in one, and then Blessed Mother and is in the other one at the back, and they were done by that man, and then there's the stained glass windows in the church, and I showed him the St. Albert Plunkett garden, and then I brought him to where St. Albert Plunkett was. Yeah, where he lived and where we celebrated Mass there in earlier on in June or July or somewhere like that. And then I brought him up to the megalithic tomb and to show him where it was. But because they went up, the two of them themselves, the Eamon's son and his grandson, and they were up and they found it very interesting. And the son, when we were visiting where St. Albert Plunkett was, there's cows, and he didn't see too many cows in New York. So here he was for about 10 minutes, kneeling, and the bloody cows was coming over to him. And he that's what he was at.
Well,
And so we had to call him, the father had to call him because we were going down to see Albert Plunkett. So it was not a good one.
there it was.
So we hadn't seen to the cows, so they enjoyed their visit here.
Huh.
Anyways, there you are. We're after digressing now, Oliver.
Thank you, John.
So that's good. So we're finished, are we?
We're finished now. Yeah, that's great. Listen, thanks very much.
Right. Thanks
Take,
very much, Oliver.
take care. Bye
Cheerio,
now.
boy.
Bye bye.